Hey, what's going on, guys? So today we're going to talk about setting tools for Bodygrip or Conibear traps. And I have behind me 5 different setting tools. And we're going to go through each one of them and just talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each. I do want to say right off that there are some people that are going to tell you, and they'll tell me that they don't need to use setters. They don't use setting tools, and I don't know any trappers personally that don't use setting tools. I know there are some that I've heard of and heard from. Yeah, we got a 120 body grip trap here, and you got some pretty small springs on this. I don't use setting tools for these, unless they're brand new, and even then you don't really need them. I mean, you can compress these springs with your hand, set the safety there, do this one, set the catch, the hook there, and then you can set the trap with no problem at all. Alright, so yeah, the 110s, the 120s, the small body grip traps, no problem. No setting tools necessary. Okay? The people that set 330s without a tool, I think you're crazy, first off. And sometimes you have some really old 330s. I can set really old Victor 330s, the old square jaw model. I can set a lot of those by hand without much trouble. I still use setting tools. I mean, are you trying to prove a point, how tough you are, or maybe you're only setting 2 or 3 traps? That's not a big deal. But if you're setting 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 of these, you're going to kill yourself by setting them by hand. So there's different methods. We're going to go over them. And even when you get into using the tools, there's still different tools that work a lot better than others and are a lot easier on your body. So it's a case where you can do a lot of things. You can work in a construction site without a hard hat and you're probably going to be fine. You can wear flip-flops on that construction site too. Your feet are probably going to hurt at the end of the day, and you're probably going to get banged up a little bit. And is it really worth the wear and tear, or do you want to use the right equipment? So just my thoughts there. But the first thing that we're going to look at, and I have some pretty new strong traps for this testing, just because I wanted to kind of show that, especially when you're starting out and you have good quality traps with strong springs, it takes a lot, can take a lot to set them. But the first thing is a rope. And this is probably the simplest method. You can use the rope. They also make chains that you can use that work the same way. And there's a number of different ways you can use a rope to set a body grip trap, but this one is particularly important for people who don't trap very often, people who may run into a situation where they're a long ways from a vehicle, from where their setting tools might be, and they want to have something to be able to compress the springs and reset a trap after a catch. Could be someone who is walking dogs on trails that there is trapping going on, and you want to have this in your pocket or your coat to make sure, in case your dog gets caught in one of these traps, you can be right there to get them out. Could be it's a really good emergency thing to have. If you don't have your setters right on you, and you get your hand caught in one of these traps and you need to get it off, and you're a long ways from help, this can be really important. So a lot of times I'll carry a piece of rope just for that reason. This rope has a loop tied to the end of it. I just made a bowline knot there on one end. Length doesn't really matter. Just I like to have a decent quality rope that's not going to cut into your fingers or anything. So we're going to use this 330 on the ground and just kind of show one method of setting it with the rope. And there's all kinds of different ways to do it, but this is kind of just the way that I initially learned how to do it, and I almost never use this. Essentially never. But so I'm going to take the trap, move this trigger out of the way, step down on the inside of the jaws. I want the catch the hook to be on the top hanging down, so I can use gravity in my favor. Get that a little bit further back so you can see a little better. And I'm just going to take the loop on the bottom of the trap and I'm going to run the other end of my rope through the loop. So that is looped around the spring eye of the trap. And I'm just going to kind of make sure that I get that in there pretty good so it doesn't slip off, or close enough. And then I'm going to run this rope up through the top spring eye, and then I'm going to run it back down through the bottom, and then I'm going to pull. And sometimes you're going to have that wrap around. There's probably ways you can prevent that, but there. And so we've got that spring set. We just do the same thing opposite on the other side, and we got our trap set. So you can certainly do that. And that's pretty simple, pretty easy, no problem. Figure that out. The question is, do you want to do that? You want to do that every time? When you're setting traps all day? No, it's just too time consuming, but it's good if you're in a pinch. Now we're going to move on to the standard scissor type body grip setters. This is what you're going to get at a trapping supply catalog or store, and it's the very first pair you're going to get when you start to buy traps. Those are the most common you're going to see in the industry. They are absolutely the worst by far, and they will get you by initially if you're just starting out. You can make them work, and you can set traps with them. They're not very safe because they're as you're compressing the spring, if something slips or if you're not you're not lined up perfectly, that can snap right back, and you can have some pretty strong spring steel kind of heading at you, and you can hurt yourself. But they do work. They are also really cheaply made, so this is just like regular stock steel that is pretty mild. I've noticed I've used these. I was too cheap when I started out, and I used these constantly. And eventually they get bent, especially on the short ends of them, the ends that hook into the trap springs. As you're compressing, especially hard, strong traps, these two sections will tend to split and form quite a gap, and they will bend over time. So not great, but they will, those are like $12 to $20 depending on what you get. And so they work. That's pretty simple to use these. You're just going to want to position things so you can get at that hook pretty easily. And then you got the two slots. You just put that in the spring eyes of the trap, and you hold tight. Now you got to hold this, and you got to keep it held while you flip that catch, that safety catch onto the spring. So a lot of times you're going to be in an awkward position. You're going to go like this, and you're going to try to bring that down, and this may slip off the table or off the ground or however you have it. I do not like this. This is quite dangerous in my opinion. Okay, so you can flip that over and you get it on, you compress, then you can set your trap. Once you have, for beginners, once you have both springs set, you can usually just use your hands to set the trap. Make sure your safety catches don't slide off or fall off while you're doing that. And you can use a body grip safety to hook onto the top of here in case your dog slipped off your trigger. Something happens while you're setting it. As an added safety measure, I don't really use that very often, just a habit of mine. So yeah, that's pretty much your standard go-to. Now this model, this type of body grip setter has been modified quite a bit. Like Sleepy Creek brand, they've got these are aluminum. They're heavier duty. They've got some nice rubber handles on the ends, and they're modified so that they're a lot easier to use. But it's still just, I don't like the design because there've been a lot of improvements on the design. And this is kind of the Cadillac version of that. Of that basic setter, in that it has a latch to hold things set when you get the spring compressed. And so it works off the same exact principle. You got this kind of scissor action here. You get the two slots where you hook the ends of the springs in. But as you'll notice, as I set this 220, when you get the spring compressed, this is going to latch in, and then you can let go of it. And then you're free to work. You don't need that third hand or fourth hand. You're free to work, and then you can get your safety on, and then you just add pressure again, and you push this button that releases that latch, and there you go. So these are kind of the deluxe. You know, you can get these at a number of different trapping supply stores. They're actually a little bit tough to find right now. I think it just takes a little more labor to make them. So a lot of the suppliers have been out of stock lately. But if you can find a good pair of these, I mean, this is what I have used like 90% of my trapping. I've used these Bodygrip safeties. Now, I always grew up, I was a real skinny kid, not very strong. And I even had trouble when I was starting out and I had these $12 setters, $10 setters. I had trouble. I was forcing on those newer traps, and I was having a hard time holding that against my leg and kicking down, holding it down with my knee and stuff against the ground and trying to get that safety on. And boy, it was just a struggle. And I was at a trapper convention one time, and I found these. They're this tool, and this is called the GEM Bodygrip Setter tool. You just step on this and you pull up, as opposed to trying to squeeze those handles together. So I'll set this, I'll use this to set the other end of this 220. Okay, so what you do here, pretty simple. You want this set up to where your safety catch is hanging down. You hook the lower hook onto the lower spring eye. You step onto it, hold it tight, and then what that does is that pulls that lower spring eye up till you hit the upper spring eye. Now you have both hooks hooked in, and all you have to do is pull up on this handle, and it pulls that rod up through this casing, and it pulls these two together and compresses the springs just like that. And this is like, that setter is super, super simple because, I mean, you can use that. You don't need to be Hulk Hogan or some or Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, in order to get traps set. You can be just a little kid and you can stand on that and pull up and no problem. A couple of issues that I don't like about this though is cost isn't too bad. It's like moderate cost, somewhere in between the entry level and the high level setters. But you have to bend down. It has to be on the ground or on a stable base in order to work. And so you constantly will be trying to find solid ground if you're out in the field setting traps, and you have to bend over and step on it and pull up. And the other thing is the trap has to be lined up just right to orient with these while this is on the ground, while the base is on the ground. And so it's just a little bit awkward. It's easy as far as, you know, strength required to do it, but it is kind of awkward ergonomically. So those are the GEM setters. And then I'm going to move on to the last type of setters. And I will admit, I haven't used these until just recently. So I heard about them for a long time, and it just took me forever to kind of finally bite the bullet and spend the money really, and to try them out. This is the RTS trap setter. This thing, as you can see, it's made like a caulking gun, but it is heavy duty, super strong, and it is the easiest, most ergonomic, and safest trap setting tool that I've been able to find. I know some people don't like them. Well, people who don't like them, it seems, haven't necessarily used them that much. And I know they are expensive. They're like about $70. And so, you know, they do have their drawbacks. But boy, since I started using these, I think this is going to replace these setters as my go-to. And so we've got here a brand new Victor 280 body grip, and this is a wicked strong spring trap. The nice thing about these hooks is where you hook onto the springs, but they don't have the hook on the eyes on the end of the springs. As you can see, those things are stubborn. They're always flopping around all over the place, and you got to get them just right so you can hook these things in the eye. Well, that's not the case with the RTS. You can hook them on anywhere on the spring, so I go back a little ways from the eye. The other thing is this can be in any position. It can be like this, it can be upside down, it can be sideways, it can be at an angle. It doesn't matter as long as you get these things hooked in. So we're going to just press this release in, and we're going to slide the main piece back, and then we're going to go upside down because that's just convenient right now. We're going to squeeze this, and this is going to squeeze together just like a caulking gun, a little bit at a time. And the only thing with the RTS is they are slow. You're just pumping one pump at a time, but I mean, I'm hardly even exerting myself at all. Get that in, and then we get our safety hooked on, and then we're just going to release this. You can do that a little more gently if you want. But see, I even had that safety catch in the wrong direction facing up, and I was still able to get it in. And this is a wicked strong trap. Like that, and maybe you want to do this the other way this time. I'm just going to go from underneath to get a bite on it. There, good to go. And then you can even take and move that while you get it on. And then you set the trap. With this one, the way this is set, these safety hooks are they're fairly long relative to the way the trap jaws are set up. And so this trap is still way open with the hooks caught, and so it's really hard. I can't hardly set it. I'd have to turn it like this and kneel down on it, and that would risk maybe the trap coming up in my face. So for strong traps, you can use the setters to. You can do this with the RTS or with any. You use the setters to help you set the trap. But these just work so slick. One hand operation. We're gonna try to release that a little bit slower. I'm still getting used to using them. And I'm going to show you just how strong this trap is. Oops. Maybe. Alright, we'll go the other way. Okay. When it sets off. Yes, okay. We're going to set it off this way then. So there, so those are the 4 different types of trap setting tools. You could use a rope or a chain with a handle on it or no handle. You could use the basic scissor type setters. You can use the upgraded scissors with the catch on them. You can use the gem step-on setters or the RTS trap setters, and there's a few others on the market you can use as well, but those are just a few options. If you're setting a bunch of traps, tools can really make it a lot easier and safer out on the trap line. So I hope that helped some people, and we'll catch you in the next video.